We are Chris Lee, Blake Lovell, and Max Barr of Southeastern 14. Today is the Basketball Mailbag edition. I think this is the third edition of this feature.
Let's go.
Had a great time with this. It's been a lot of fun. Hope it's been as much
I
fun
love
for you
these.
guys as it's been for us. Oh, yeah. Yeah, these are great. These are sponsored by BetOnline. It's playoff time. The road to Vegas goes through San Francisco and Baltimore. BetOnline is your number one source for playoff football odds, stats, trends, and lines, with everything from point spreads to numbers to hundreds of player performance props. Head to BetOnline today. Stay updated on all the action. BetOnline. The game starts here. Our man Blake Lovell is in charge of the mailbag. This is usually done mostly blind. I don't think we've really looked at the questions for the most part, other than maybe Blake queuing them up. I did see one or two on Twitter. So I'm maybe a little bit more prepared for what's coming than most weeks. But I think some of the fun of it is the spontaneity and seeing how we answer right away. So with that, Blake, let's have it with the first question.
What do we got?
All right, from Royal Payne. Noted professional wrestling fan. Regarding Alabama, it's clear Grant Nelson doesn't trust himself to drive to the basket hard when he would get fouled a lot, and he has nice moves around the rim. Seem to play more aggressively in the second half versus Auburn. If he and Stevenson start playing to their size, how far can Alabama go?
I like that question.
What do you got,
Blake?
Max?
Blake, do you have any thoughts right away?
No, I'm curious to see what you guys think.
I think he had the best. I think that second half was some of the best I've seen Grant Nelson play, especially Chris. I think you mentioned it in our reaction, the reverse slam and one. I would like to just see him start doing that. I mean, I know that Nate Oates said in the post-game press conference, he said, "Hey, if Grant's open, I'm going to let him shoot it." But I think to get his confidence back, he's just got to start being ultra aggressive and just, get into the free throw line. He shoots a great free throw. So I think he's just got to stick to what he does best. And that's picking up matchups, driving, using his size, and finishing around the rim and getting to the free throw line. And he's been a great rebounder. He's been doing great. So how far can Alabama go? Well, geez, look at him. Look at them right now. They're in first place in the SEC. So how much better do you want them to get?
Yeah, I mean, first on Stevenson, he was a top 25 recruit out of high school.
Reclass.
Yeah, I mean, he's been reasonably efficient with his shooting. They don't rely on him to play a lot, 16 minutes a game. Good free throw shooter, which a lot of freshman bigs aren't always that. I mean, but here's the thing. He's kind of a bonus to me. He's not a feature of what they have to have. They've got so many options: Wrightsell, Estrada, Nelson, Sears. I mean, they just have so many kids who can score. I don't think that anything depends on Stevenson, but he's a nice bonus if he takes it to another level. Look, I've not sat here and like watched every Alabama game with a notepad noting whether Grant Nelson is aggressive in taking the ball to the basket or not. So I would not be the guy to give you a definitive observation on that. I would presume that the guy that asked the question knows a lot more about that than I do. But again, I did note some of it the other night against Alabama. Nate Oates, I was listening to the Field of 68 last night, and Oates was on with them. And I bet you in the first 2 minutes, he just kept saying, I can't remember the word that he used, but he had challenged his team. Toughness was what it was. He had questioned his team's toughness, and he was challenging its toughness. And maybe Grant Nelson took some of that to heart against Auburn with the way we saw him play. And it was a really good game for Grant Nelson.
I just think Max kind of said what I would say is, I think they just got to stay aggressive in terms of the rebounding, because it's not even, to me, just about being aggressive, taking the ball to the basket, all that. I think it's just staying aggressive on the boards, because, again, this is a team that's going to shoot volume, right? Like, there's going to be a lot of shots in an Alabama game. And I think just being aggressive can also just mean, hey, get a second chance opportunity, get a couple of these here or there. And, that adds up in terms of just being someone that can, and look, he had 3 against Auburn. He had 3 against Missouri. That's kind of been the off and on, right? 0 against Tennessee, 0 against South Carolina. So, I think just being aggressive on the glass will continue to help. Like you said, Max, he has been on the defensive glass. I think offensive glass too is interesting because it is a team where they've got a lot of size. You kind of look at the offensive rebounding splits for Alabama. Wagi has 33, Pringle has 30, Estrada has 27, Nelson has 27, Griffin has 19, Sears has 18. We know how they play, and so I think it's staying kind of in that attack mode, even with that area. I think is important. But yeah, they're going to need Grant Nelson to be great if they're going to make a deep run in the NCAA tournament. So he has to be one of the guys that is contributing, and to do that, you have to be aggressive. And so everybody knows how far I think Alabama can go. I said it. I think they can win the conference. So to me, they can make a deep run in the NCAA tournament, Sweet 16 and beyond. But the defense has gotten better. The offense is still clicking. So all the issues were with the defense, and they're playing much better there. So they're a Sweet 16 and beyond type team to me. So
Oh yeah.
All right. Number 2. Benny Mel asks, which team do you trust the most to make a deep March Madness run? So it kind of piggybacks off what we just said.
Ooh.
Although I don't know if any of us are picking Alabama, but
I like this question. Is just in the SEC, right?
I presume.
yeah, I would say that's
Presume.
probably.
I would say my guess would be probably Tennessee, because they have the stars and the places you need. Need a guard, need a ball handler that can handle a press, can handle bringing the ball up. That's Ziegler. You got Ziegler and Vescovy. You need that wing kind of slasher, scorer, 3-point shooter. You got that in Connect. You got that in Josiah Jordan-James. And you have the rim protection with Adu and Awaka. The one thing that Tennessee hasn't been able to do consistently is to stay out of foul trouble. Speaking of Adu and Awaka, that's come back to bite them in a few games. But if you're just looking at a team makeup on who doesn't have major weaknesses anywhere, the thing is with Tennessee has always been their offense, and that's been corrected this year for the most part. So my answer would be Tennessee.
Tennessee would also be my answer. I feel like this is an older, experienced team. It's tough. It defends. That's going to carry with the Vols. Now, the thing that is undone Tennessee every year in the tournament is not having that guy it can go to get points. It's got a guy in Dalton Connect that's about as good at that as anybody in the country. He's a big guard. He's well built. He can take over a game. Look, I always say mid-February on is when I start really, I feel like getting a feel of who can do what in the tournament. So we're still 3 weeks out, but right now, and it could change, I feel like it's Tennessee.
I don't get a feel of who can do what in the tournament until I see the bracket. Matchups are everything, and we're going to go sweep with Tennessee here, and I know what the comment's going to be. Well, as you know, they're coached by Rick Barnes, and they don't ever make a run in the tournament. But I think the difference is, as you guys have said, and the difference is they don't have the offensive lapses this year that they've had in years past because they have a Dalton Connect, and it just has changed the dynamic of them offensively. So, I would probably go Tennessee as well, although I'm not ready to jump off the Auburn train just yet, because I do think the depth of Auburn, I think, will prove to be a huge asset in tournament play. And so I would still kind of, and not say Tennessee's not deep, but again, I wouldn't jump off of Auburn just yet on that. So, all right, next one. Sorry, Kentucky fans, you would have been my choice before Tuesday. Let's see. Number 3, Logan asks, this tournament feels very different from past years. Which SEC team or team in general that's underperformed would you say has the best chance to come back and make a run in March? So we got a theme here. We got trying to project tournaments, but this one's more interesting, I think, in terms of underperforming teams that can make a run in the tournament.
My answer would be Mississippi State right now, just because of the matchup nightmare that Tolu Smith can be. And Blake, I like how you mentioned it's all about matchups. I mean, if we're looking at teams that have underperformed, Mississippi State's 2-4 in the conference. They have a SEC Player of the Year candidate. And I think that if you get into March, say Josh Hubbard has a few game stretch where he hits 3+3s in all those games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that might be all it takes for this Mississippi State team, because I'll tell you what, no one wants to be defended by DJ Jeffries and Cam Matthews in March. No one's going to want that matchup. So if you're looking at a team that is not played up to expectations this far, that has some studs, I would go with Mississippi State.
Max, you and I are on the same wavelength today, because that
All
was
right,
my
Chris.
first guess too. I think State's kind of Tennessee light in a way. I think the Hubbard factor, that's the one thing you could look at last year and like, boy, they just don't have a shooter. But, man, they got old dudes underneath. They're tough. Chris Jans has had a little bit of a history at New Mexico State of some tournament performance.
Yup.
I mean, look, sleeper is – there's just not a lot of sleepers in this league. Maybe Florida. I don't know. The other one, depending on how you define underperform, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Alabama's 8th in KenPom, but it's lost 6 games. So maybe you could say Alabama's record should have been better. I think Blake brought up something with Alabama that the defense has been better. It's been much better in conference play. Offensively, we know it's a very gifted team. So if you want to say that Alabama's underperformed so far, I could buy that as an answer. But that might be – I don't mean to be insulting to Alabama. I don't mean it that way. But the 6 losses is maybe more – and you've heard Nate Oates talk about it. He didn't think they'd take that many losses, but also look at who they've been to. Most teams in the country would lose 6 games to those teams. So I think State's the best answer. But if you want to define Alabama – is a little disappointing based on wins and losses, which seems kind of silly when they're tied for first. And if you want to discard it for that reason, I'm fine with it. But those would be my 2.
I would disqualify Alabama because I think they're sitting in first place in the SEC, and I think if you take them out of the equation, Mississippi State's a good choice. I'm not ready to jump off the Texas A&M bandwagon though either, and people will point out the shooting and all that. They've underperformed. They're 3-3, 12-7. I just think when you have a guy like Wade Taylor, again, people will knock turnovers and all this other stuff, efficiency numbers and such, but I still think that's a team that can win games against good teams down the stretch potentially, just because they do have a player like that. So I wouldn't throw A&M out of the discussion, because if you look at it, they have one of the toughest schedules of anybody. I mean, they played one of the toughest schedules in the SEC to this point, not just SEC, like overall. And so they've been tested, and the shooting numbers will make you hide your, eyes, but I still would not discount A&M from this conversation. So, but yeah, Mississippi State 2 and 4 is probably the best choice. So, all right, on to the next one. Ed, who again, I promised Ed I would not pick Arkansas. I did not. As an Arkansas fan, it's safe to say on to baseball. And any recommendations on the next engine for the Must Bus? Because evidently this one is blown up. I haven't done my studies on the mechanical engine situation, but I do think he's not wrong on this. So, but I mean, basically, Ed's saying, is this it? Like, is there any reason to buy into Arkansas at this point? Here's my answer.
No.
You want my answer?
No.
Ask me after Saturday.
Yeah. Because I just said no pretty confidently, and now they're going to go beat Kentucky. This is what I'll say. When you give team no chance, when you give them absolutely no chance, that's usually when they play their most desperate. So, hey, you got Kentucky coming up here, game day magic, and then you got Missouri, LSU, Georgia before you get Tennessee at home. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's a path to winning 4 games in a row if you can create some magic here on game day. I like Blake's answer. Hold off until Saturday, because there's a heartbeat. It's faint, but there's a pulse.
Well, I mean, it depends on what you mean. Are they going to lose every game here on out? I doubt it. That they might jump up.
I think what he's asking, like, should he just move on to baseball, or is there a reason?
Well, I mean,
give it a week.
If your expectations are making the postseason, yeah, move on to baseball. Because, I mean, as I pointed out, even if they start winning some games, they're so low in the net, I don't think that they can recover. I really don't. Look, we know Eric Musselman's team starts slow in conference play, but this is 1-5. I mean, if Tremont Mark doesn't hit a shot with 2 seconds left, they're staring down 0-6, and all those losses in league play have been by double digits. No, I mean, when a team is underperforming that badly, something's wrong somewhere. I don't know what it is, but I've given up hope for that team. And I have. If I'm an Arkansas fan, I am putting my hopes in baseball because I think they're going to be really good there.
You know what I used to do, Ed, back in the day with my favorite teams in whatever sport it was? If they were really struggling, my motto I wasn't one of the guys where it's like, you always got to support the team. I don't think so. I was one of the guys where, you know what? I'm not watching this. And if they win, great. But if they don't, then I'm just having to watch another loss, right? I'll just let me know if something good happens. But all that to say, I would watch the Kentucky game because I said it in the preview. Max mentioned the game day magic, all that. Like this is,
Come
I
on.
don't know how many last stands I've given Arkansas this year, but give them another one on this one because I think this is the last stand finally to where see what happens here. See what happens with this Kentucky game. Because if they lose this one and they lose by double digits,
Yeah.
then I think it's probably tough to stay invested at that point if that's what happens here. Because again, that also takes away just Bud Walton has always been kind of the separator. Like it's just okay, we're playing at Bud Walton, everything will be fine. It's just not been that way. So we'll see if that's what happens in this game against Kentucky. But I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's a challenge, and making the NCAA tournament would mean going on a pretty historic run here, and we've just not seen enough from this team to bank on it. So, baseball, find a new engine, I guess. What Ed's saying, I don't know. We'll see. All right, Kendall asks, how many teams are realistically capable of winning the SEC? Looking at the remaining schedules, who has the best chance to win it? Oh boy. I'm getting the sense it's going to be a 40-minute question here.
No, I'll make it quick.
So
My
let's
answer pretty quick.
Here you go. Let me just run this off for you, okay? Okay. Tell me, rank this from easy, okay, hard. All right? Those are your three choices. I'm going to run down the remaining schedules of the teams that I think can win the SEC. You ready?
Yep.
All right. Auburn, at Mississippi State, home against Vanderbilt, at Ole Miss. All right, you know what? I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to give you the road games. I'm going to give you the home games. At Mississippi State, at Ole Miss, at Florida, at Georgia, at Tennessee, at Missouri. Home games. Vanderbilt, Alabama, South Carolina, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Georgia. Easy, middle, hard.
I'd say middle.
Well, nothing's easy in this league, but it could have been a lot worse.
Ken Palm has this the easiest schedule of anybody in the SEC.
There you go.
Conference strength
There's
schedule.
no way.
I don't agree with either, but I'm just telling you what's on
way. I was
conference
leaning
strength
towards hard.
All right.
Alabama. No, wait a minute. Is that conference strength of schedule on the whole or so far? I think that's on the whole, isn't it?
You're the computer guy. I'm just telling you what I see.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know which way it's supposed to mean, but someone will tell us. Okay, Alabama, road games at Georgia, at Auburn, at LSU, at Kentucky, at Ole Miss, at Florida. Home games: LSU, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, Florida, Tennessee, Arkansas. I think that's a hard schedule.
Ooh. Man, you get Auburn, Kentucky, and Tennessee, Florida twice. Yeah, that's tough.
But Kentucky's on the road. Okay. Yep. I mean, it's tougher than Auburn's.
I mean, Alabama still has to go to Auburn, to Kentucky. Still got to play Tennessee, even though it's at home. Yeah, so still got to go to Florida. Still got to go to Georgia. I think it's a hard schedule.
I'll put Auburn ahead of Alabama.
Palm has Alabama at 6. Toughest schedule. Tennessee, road games at Vanderbilt, at Kentucky, at A&M, at Arkansas, at Missouri, at Alabama, at South Carolina. Home games: South Carolina, LSU, Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, Auburn, Kentucky.
Ooh,
I think that's middle of the
tough.
road. Is
I
it?
think that's tougher than Alabama's.
I like how you catch. Well, you got to play Kentucky twice, but
Yeah.
you catch Auburn and Kentucky at home. Yeah, it's middle of the road. I think. Who was it? Auburn. I think Auburn has the nicest schedule out of those three.
I think Tennessee's middle to hard on that one because you do have to play a couple of those teams twice. So, all right, and then Kentucky. Is there anybody else we're including in the mix that can win the SEC, or should we keep
No.
Kentucky out of this, Chris?
Let's do the schedule, then I'll tell you.
Okay. Road games at Arkansas, at Vanderbilt, at Auburn, at LSU, at Mississippi State, at Tennessee. Home games: Florida, Tennessee. Well, Gonzaga doesn't count. Ole Miss, Alabama, Arkansas, Vanderbilt. I think that's middle of the road.
I don't
Home
like
games
that
are-
road schedule at all.
Well, I don't like anybody's
Yeah.
road schedule, to be honest with you. So I think the home schedule is more than manageable, though.
Yeah,
I'll go Auburn.
I thought it was a 4-team race just based on talent. I think I'd have Kentucky 4 of the 4 right now, especially with that schedule on the road where they just had some big problems.
Actually, I'm rescinding my answer.
That it does seem like it points to Auburn, but there's still that nagging thing where Auburn just really is not. And I know that doesn't disqualify you from being really good, but Auburn is yet to have that exclamation mark coming out of a night yet where just it went and beat a heavyweight. So I just don't think now almost Alabama would have qualified in Tuscaloosa, I think, but it didn't get it. So I still think it's Auburn probably.
Tennessee's my answer.
I think if you could switch Tennessee and Auburn schedules, I would take Tennessee.
Tennessee has. The thing about Tennessee is that they don't. Well, they do play. Never mind. Yeah, Kentucky's an interesting one to me because I think all their home games are winnable, and I think they're going to win at least half the road games. But it's the 3 at Auburn, at Mississippi State, at Tennessee that are all kind of brutal. But if you're just going by KenPom, Auburn 14th, Kentucky 12th, Alabama 6th, Tennessee 5th. So conference strength of schedule, Tennessee would be considered the toughest, Alabama the second toughest, Kentucky third, Auburn easiest. So there you have it.
Tennessee's got to go to Alabama, to South Carolina, to Kentucky, to A&M.
Yeah, that's an issue, I think, for me.
Yeah.
That's going to be tough to win. Not just win all of them, I don't think, but it's not easy for Tennessee, I think, because and I'm just going to throw in the caveat of Arkansas. It's 3 weeks away. Like maybe you don't know yet. So, yeah,
I like Tennessee's schedule. I like it. They're winning at Texas A&M. They're winning at Arkansas. They're winning at South Carolina. Come on. They're not losing at home either. Give me Tennessee.
All right. I think it's Auburn, Tennessee, but it's not breaking news. So, I think
Look, Tennessee's lost 4 times away from home. Now look, that is without context. That's unfair. Purdue, Kansas neutral, at North Carolina, and then the other one was at Mississippi State. But it's a different team, home and road, which Tennessee's hardly the only team guilty of that.
I don't know, man. I'm just going to say it again, though. I don't think Alabama's schedule is that bad. I think Alabama may belong in the discussion. At
definitely.
Georgia, at Auburn, at LSU, at Kentucky, at Ole Miss, at Florida. It does seem kind of tough on paper, but it's going to be a challenge to win at Auburn. It's going to be a challenge to win at Kentucky. But they could win at Florida. They could win at Ole Miss. They could win at LSU. Could win at Georgia. And then their home games. Yeah, you get Tennessee at home. You get A&M at home, Florida at home, teams that have not played well on the road.
Yeah, Alabama's got a good schedule.
They get Mississippi State at home. Team's not played well on the road. So I would not discount Alabama either in the conversation. So not just because I picked them to win the league, but
No, I like Alabama's schedule a lot, actually.
yeah. All right. Sam, no questions this week about Stackhouse, but he wants to let us know that he is on the hashtag Keep Stackhouse train. Of course, Sam's a Tennessee fan, so you guys can take from that what you want. Kentucky has the 97th defense according to Ken Palm. For reference, St. Peter's is 92. Oh, I guess Chris probably paid Sam to ask this question. With that said, is Kentucky's defense fixable, and how realistic is it to win the SEC/make a run in March with a defense like that? Boy, I guess this is Chris's burner account now that we were starting to put it all together. So, man, how much money
Chris, you
you
take
giving
the
under
floor
the
with
table
this
for this one?
I think Blake's dangerously close to hitting the penalty box for instigating here.
I mean, can we prove that you're not Sam Smith? We can't.
I find it
There's no
interesting that Sam's has of all the 362 teams in the country cited St. Peter's here as his
Well,
comp.
Sam,
That seems a little unusually cruel, perhaps.
I'd say Sam's trying to go to the penalty box if you ask me. But
I think so.
I have my answer.
Go ahead, you two.
Can you post the question again?
How far of a run can they make? They can go to the Final Four. Look at a Final Four team last year. Miami, number 6 offense, number 99 defense.
Oh,
pretty much the same thing.
Basically, is Kentucky's defense fixable, and can they make a run?
Yes and yes. That's my answer.
I mean, I think it's fixable. Look at the talent.
Okay, can they make a run?
Well, of course. I mean, they can.
Oh, well.
We just saw a team with the exact same metrics as them go to the Final Four last year.
Yeah, I mean, but look, that's kind of the outlier too. I mean, I think whatever. I would like to find the stat of like if you make the Final Four, your defensive efficiency's got to be top 25 or Ken Palm. There's something out there like that floating around that maybe we'll grab for next week or as we get closer to time. But what Miami did is unusual. But I mean, this Kentucky team's more talented than the Miami team too. So,
okay. All right. Well, then,
come on, Blake.
What?
You didn't.
Blake,
give
you don't
much of
have
an
anything?
answer.
I'm going to tie it into our final question.
Because
the question is from Justin, who says, when looking at this is kind of a nice sequence of questions here. When looking at the consensus top 4, Alabama, Tennessee, Auburn, and Kentucky in the SEC, what type of matchup should each team be hoping for and hoping to avoid in the NCAA tournament? So this plays right into what we just talked about. So
that's the best question we've gotten yet.
A great question. So if we start, we'll just go in order here to get to the main event. If we start with Alabama, what type of matchup should they be hoping for? What type of matchup should they be hoping to avoid?
This is such a good question. Matchup they should be hoping to avoid would be a pressure defense, similar to.
I just say I would avoid Tennessee in the bracket. Like that would be my answer. Don't play Tennessee. That's or a clone of Tennessee. So
well, Chris, you actually said Mississippi State is Tennessee light earlier today. I don't know if it was in this show or a preview show, but Mississippi State almost beat this Alabama team also. It's those pressure defenses that really get right into you and push your offense out. We've seen Alabama get uncomfortable and have that recurring turnover issue that they've had in some games. So I would not want to play a real aggressive, high pressing defense. That's what I would be wanting to avoid.
Yeah, I think if you're Alabama and Kentucky, it's teams that can kind of grind you when you've got the ball and slow. Yeah. I mean, we saw South Carolina do it to Kentucky the other night. Yep. For Tennessee, I think Sam had pointed out last mailbag or 2 mailbags ago that bigs gave them trouble. Now, the bigs that gave them trouble are also like if you start making a list of bigs, they're the best in the country. So let's take that in consideration. I think somebody like Dalton connect up because, again, where Tennessee struggled in the tournament is when they can't score. And if you can lock connect up, I think they I'm not going to say they panic, but it's a lot harder to win. Auburn,
Hold on,
boy.
Chris. We're going. Hold on. We're going one team at a
Okay.
time here. We got 2 questions to answer for each team.
Okay.
So we were still on Alabama.
Yeah.
Back to
Oh,
Alabama
sorry.
for a second. So Max, she talks about what they should want to avoid, and we were both kind of on the same. Just somebody that's going to pressure them and force turnovers, because we've seen Alabama make some bad turnovers at times. So I would definitely say that's the team they want to avoid. Anyone that plays like Tennessee and or forces turnovers, which probably goes hand in hand. But the matchup Alabama should hope for, I mean, I don't know. I mean, probably a team that what's the best way to say it? Like, I mean, obviously you don't want to play a team that's just a juggernaut offensively, but would you say they should hope for a team that gets up and down the floor, or should they hope for a team that just, I'd say that's their style, right? Or does defensively that put them in a situation where they'd rather play someone that just works in the half court?
So where I'm kind of coming at it is, I think they gotta hope for a team that, well, kind of ties into what they want to avoid, but hope for a team that struggles with perimeter defense.
Yeah.
A team that gives up a not necessarily a 3-point shooting percentage, but a team that gives up a high rate of 3-pointers. A team that lets them shoot, because we saw what Wrightsell and Griffin can do. You give them an inch, they'll take it and knock down the shot. So, similar to a team like Texas A&M last year, where they go in and play Penn State, and the 3-point percentage defense that they leaned on just isn't there. I'd say a team like that can't afford to allow a lot of threes.
All right. So Chris, moving on to Tennessee, you mentioned repeat what you said so I can refresh my memory.
Well, hang on for just a minute. I wanted to look at all the teams that have beaten Alabama so far, and there's a little bit of common. I tend to think like somebody that could grind them down would be the team. But let's look at the teams that have beaten them. Working backwards, Tennessee adjusted offensive efficiency 19. Arizona adjusted offensive efficiency in KenPom 8. Creighton is number 34. Purdue is number 1. And let's see, Clemson is 13. And Ohio State is 39. So the 6 teams that have all beaten Alabama are top 40 offensive teams in KenPom.
But I also think Alabama's defense has gotten a lot better since
Yes,
most of those
Yes.
losses. So, but it's true.
Who's the next team?
All right.
Tennessee. Oh, well, the team they want to avoid is pretty obvious to me. Is they want to avoid a team that has a high free throw rate, because in every one of their losses, I think Adu and Awaka have either fouled out or had like 4 and 5 fouls. The difference that the defense has when Adu goes out is massive difference. I would avoid, like, I don't like their game against Georgia. How much Georgia got to the free throw line. Teams like that are going to be able to get Adu into foul trouble because of how aggressive Tennessee plays. I don't like their matchup against teams that really force the action.
I completely agree with that. Because again, games are going to be called differently, and like, it's just So,
and then
yeah.
do you have a thought, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, like a team that came to mind, like I don't think you'd want to see Connecticut in your bracket. I mean, nobody probably does for a bunch of reasons, but you know what I mean? Now that they've got Klingon healthy, it's kind of been a different team, and I could just see that one being a little bit of a nightmare.
Teams they want to look for or hope to get a matchup for would be a team that relies on a high percentage of their scoring from a small amount of players. Something like how they looked against Ole Miss, how they looked against Florida. Teams that rely on a series of guards for a lot of their offense, Tennessee just eats them up with Ziegler, Meshack, and those guys. So I'd say, like a team like Creighton is a team that Tennessee could eat up, with just teams that don't have a deep bench is what I would say they're looking for, because they can really take individuals out of a game.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Max, for Tennessee on both sides. I don't have anything to add. So Max
Beautiful.
duty on it. All right, Auburn.
Creighton does have a big though.
They do.
They do, but they don't have AD. All right, on the Auburn.
You have any first thoughts, Blake?
I mean, it's hard because Auburn's the most balanced team in the SEC.
Yeah, they're super balanced, but I think they have two weaknesses.
Play zone, teams that make them shoot the three, teams that just pack the paint and say good luck. That's probably your best option, maybe your only option to beat them.
Yep. Making Aiden Holloway and Trey Donaldson make individual play after individual play. Taking away Broom. Because we saw when Broom goes out, yes, Cardwell is incredible defensively and the energy he brings, but the offense runs a lot different. It's not as efficient with Broom out. So I would say teams you want to avoid would be defenses like an Iowa State defense, like a Texas Tech defense, teams that really force the action to one side of the floor. And, down the stretch, we saw when Holloway and Donaldson had to make one-on-one plays, they're going to keep getting better, and they're doing great. But we haven't really seen them in a tough spot really been able to make that shot yet. So, yeah, I would say those teams that really take away the paint.
I think that Blake has hit on it. What makes them so tough is they're so deep and they're so balanced. And we've pointed about, like, even when they get in foul trouble with Broom, they got other bigs. But the issue with that is when the fouls stack up, you're sending teams to the foul line. So I think to me, it's somebody that can get to the foul line. But here's what's interesting, guys. I'm looking at free throw rate in KenPom. And there's not a huge correlation between the top teams in the country and teams that I could see giving Auburn problems. Like, for example, the top 10 teams in the country at free throw rate, one of them's Arkansas at 6. I mean, non-factor. I'm looking at this. Probably the only two teams are going to be in the tournament in the top 10, Nevada at 9, that might or might not get in. Grand Canyon's probably going to get in. It was what, a 13 or a 14. You go to the next 10 teams that could get in, like on a large quality resume. I'm not seeing anybody. You go to, you really have to get to Purdue at 30 before you see a team that's really elite that gets to the line a lot. And that's kind of interesting.
All right.
Blake, what do you think? Anything?
No, I mean, like I said, I just think Auburn's a hard one because based on what we've seen to this point, I mean, there's just not been a lot to kind of poke at. I mean, it's just like you said. I think it's a team that just packs the paint and lets them shoot threes, and maybe they just rely on it too much. I don't have anything against taking open threes if I'm Auburn. I think I would still take the open threes, but it's just time and situation too, where it's sometimes you got to know that taking an open three may not be as good of an idea as trying to get the ball to Broom and letting him do his thing. And so, yeah, I think that's probably it. But I mean, what type of matchup should Auburn hope for? I mean, they've played a lot of different styles at this point and have been pretty successful with it. So I think that's where the depth and just the way they play, I think, gives them so many. They can just kind of do anything in terms of stylistically. Now, they'd love to play just a game that's what we saw against Alabama, just up and down the floor, free flowing. Probably wouldn't love to just play someone that's just going to completely stop the game, right? In terms of walk the ball down the floor, make them defend for an hour or whatever. I think you would say that about quite a few teams. So, yeah.
I think that a matchup made in heaven would be a team that only has like one primary ball handler. something like that, where Auburn can really enforce their defense and start getting those steals where they get out and run and the slam dunks from Cardwell and Baker Mazzara and stuff. I think if they get a shorthanded backcourt, it could be trouble all night for an opposition.
All right, Kentucky.
Blake, I want to ask you a question. And Max, does it feel like Auburn is maybe the most matchup-proof team in this league?
Just because of the depth.
Yeah.
On to Kentucky?
I wouldn't. Yeah, that's probably right. I mean, I think Tennessee is. I get some of the struggles, but Tennessee's just a.
Tennessee's close.
They're close, but yeah, I would go Auburn. All right, Kentucky. I mean, it's pretty simple for me.
Yeah.
Based on what we've seen to this point. Again, we are projecting 2 months ahead, essentially. But based on what we've seen to this point, I mean, I think the South Carolina game was as glaring as any. So if I have to answer right now, it's definitely going to be you don't want to play anybody who's just going to push you around and bump you at every turn, because that's what South Carolina did, and Kentucky had no answer for it. Zero. So you don't want to play that game. You don't want to be dependent on the free throw line, which they're really not, because, that's something else. And so, yeah, I think it's pretty clear. Kentucky wants to play a team that there's not going to be a lot of teams that are going to be able to match Kentucky from a talent standpoint. But the teams like South Carolina who come in as the aggressor, until we see Kentucky kind of push back on that, in a way that they did not do against South Carolina, I think that's clearly the type of team they do not want to play, is a South Carolina, Tennessee, teams like that. So,
yeah, you nailed it. Those older, mature 5th year, 6th year senior teams that have 25, 30 pounds on them. Those are the teams that they're going to want to avoid. They don't want any business with those rock fight style games.
Yeah, you guys hit it.
Teams they'd like to play. I mean, it's kind of easy, isn't it? I mean, really, just I think any teams that give them the opportunity to get shots up from the perimeter, because I think it's like we said, that's the difference. South Carolina did not let them get any opportunities, and like I said, I still think there were chances for Kentucky to try to run a few more things to get those chances, other than just a ball screen. But yeah, I think that's kind of, to me, it's just you want to play teams that, because Kentucky gets up and down the floor. That's I mean, to me, that's it, right? Like Kentucky doesn't want anyone that's going to just completely make them play a half court game. Like they want to get up and down the floor. And so, you certainly don't want to run into teams like that, because I guess we could say, let me look at it here and make sure I'm not off on my numbers. I don't study the computers every second of the day, but I mean, yeah. So, I mean, South Carolina and Texas A&M are the two teams that would play the slowest pace, right, in the SEC. It's completely different games, but, the common denominator is that Kentucky lost both of them. And, again, the A&M game just got wild. And so it kind of didn't matter there. But, yeah, Kentucky would definitely prefer a free-flowing game where they can get out in transition and put up more threes, because they didn't get any of that against South Carolina. So,
yeah, they're gonna want a team that lets them run.
I mean, to some extent, the answer is Kentucky might be its own worst enemy. That's probably not entirely fair, because other teams can do things too. But I'm like, you wouldn't want to run up against, maybe if Virginia makes it, at Virginia in a second round game. I don't think you'd want to be a 4 drawing a 13 Liberty, something like that.
Yeah, I just think they want to be able to play free and play. They don't like the long 30-second half court possessions. A team that's gonna clank a few threes and let them have a defensive rebound lead right into transition. Teams like that, that are gonna let them run. That's what they're gonna want. Not these South Carolinas that are gonna use every second of the shot clock. They want no business in that.
Yeah. All right, that's all we got for the mailbag this week. So we appreciate you guys always. Remember, send them in. You don't have to send them in just on the tweet we send every Thursday, but you can,
comment,
hit us up with a reply in the comments. at 14 Southeastern. Just flip it on Twitter. At 14 Southeastern, you can send us your questions anytime for the mailbag. So you guys can do that whenever you like. As always, hit that subscribe button. We will check out all of our previews for Saturday's games. And we will have reaction probably on Saturday night this week instead of Sunday. So be sure to hit that subscribe button so that way if we go live on Saturday night, you guys get that notification. So
this has been the Mailbag Edition here at Southeastern 14. Thanks for watching. We are Southeastern 14 presented by BetOnline.